Hello and welcome to a new series of Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. So, in this series, we've got mods now. This is absolutely awesome. That's mostly why I'm starting over. There's a lot of things these mods are going to allow us to do that we couldn't do before, which is very cool. And so this first city I'm building here, I'm going to build almost everything I can using just mods, mostly because I want to test a lot of these mods out and see just how well they work, see how effective they are. Because there's some mods out there that don't work even though they theoretically should. A good example of that would be like this enormous power plant mod I saw. I don't know if it's been taken down or not, but it has such a crazy output and it still only has the same connections for power. Well, you run into the issue that you have a limit on the amount of electricity you can put across wires. So it's really just a waste of overproduction. Anyway, so there we placed the super apartment mod. That building is the model's just the medical university, and it's supposed to hold 10,000 workers. It is absolutely insane. So that's like a one building city right there. And so now I've got to place down a bunch of transport connections. These are trolley and rail connection combination. Go ahead and connect it up with some nice fancy looking roads. Yeah, this is about 2 hours, 2.5 hours of gameplay, and I've condensed it down nicely into about 29 minutes for you. So, there's that. There's going to be a little bit of jumping, a little bit of that, you know? You don't need to sit there and watch me place every single little section of road. As you can see, I'm a bit indecisive at times, so yeah, it takes a little longer. Anyway, just kind of trying to figure out the most optimal pattern here, because we're going to have so many people in that one spot. It's going to be, the biggest challenge is really going to be moving that many people to a workplace. Like, it's going to take a lot of, it's going to be very transport heavy around that one building. And it's going to be absolutely insane trying to figure out the best way to move all of them around. And so here I'm playing around with the rails, trying to figure out, because my plan is to have 4 vehicle factories all together and to move all of these people down there to operate it, and then we'll still have people left over after that. So right now I'm just trying to figure out the best layout for these rails in order to get everybody down in that direction, and I'm looking at that and it looks kind of cool, but no, that's not what I'm after. So I just kind of drew an outline of where I wanted a rail loop to go all the way around this, and here I'm just kind of trying to get those angles right so it doesn't look too crazy on the corners. And I'm gonna have to, I think the rail really took the longest time for me to lay out of anything. I really gotta just kind of play with the planning tools here and get it just right. And in the end, it looks really good. It's not perfect, but it's as close to perfect as I could get it. So yeah, just gonna continue playing with those rails, drawing them back, and working those angles as effectively as I can. Now I've noticed a lot of people do not start with vehicle factories, and even when they do build them, if they're building them as a source of money, they don't do it the best way, which the best way I found for making money off of vehicle factories is to produce Western vehicles and sell them to the East for rubles. Because when you sell Western vehicles to the East, there's a price markup. Whereas if you were to sell Western vehicles to the West, you can sell them as a brand new price for the same price you would pay to purchase those vehicles. But it's a huge markup when you sell them to the East. Of course, you're only getting rubles that way. Also, selling Eastern vehicles to the West has the opposite effect. It has a huge markdown. So you definitely want to sell Western vehicles for rubles, and you're going to want to figure something else out for your dollar income. And so I got that loop finished finally, and as you can see, 3 of the corners are pretty much identical, and then that top right corner is a little bit different. That's just, I got tired of trying to mess with it, so I just accepted it for what it was. And now I'm going to go ahead and line these stops in, and they're not going to be perfectly symmetrical with each other because I had to offset the one pair so that that road connection could hit from that super apartment. But I think this layout will, it's probably the most effective layout I could do, honestly. I mean, 10,000 workers, that's an absolutely insane amount of people to be moving from one location. So, there's the overview. Looks a little lopsided, but it won't look so bad once we start filling it in with buildings. And there I've gone and filled in all the support buildings. Well, not all of them, most of them. As well as I've started laying in footpaths, because footpaths are going to be absolutely essential. Because really what we want is for people to be able to walk from this building to any building they're going to need. And I do manage to do that. It does take a lot of playing around with footpaths and everything. Right now I still don't have any people in the city. I don't have any electricity. All it is these buildings I'm throwing up. And there we're connected in that super kindergarten. Hold on, tons and tons of kids. So now I've got most of those footpaths in. And now we've jumped way ahead to where I've got all of the support buildings in place for people, as well as you can see over there I've got the technical university, and then off on the left I've got 2 power plants, which, yeah, I suppose that's another industry you could count, although power plants I don't really consider a huge industry because you don't make a lot of money off of them. They do provide a nice stream of constant money flow, and it does negate the need to import power, which it pays off well in the long run, but it's not short-term huge money maker. As you can see, I've got an absolutely absurd number of train tracks running through there. Over on the left, you can see where I've got a couple of fueling stations. Those are mod buildings as well. That I've got the tracks 6 wide over there. It's absolutely nuts. However, I set the tracks up ridiculous like that because I don't plan on only having people brought in from that one super apartment. I'm also going to be having people come in from other locations in the future, and so that's why I wanted to go a little overboard on the tracks so that it would be a little easier to tie in additional tracks later on. Anyway, now what I'm doing is I selected a bus. It's the smallest bus minus the micro bus, and even still it's a bit larger than I wanted, but it's all I've got available to me. And what these buses are going to be doing is I'm going to have one going to each of the bus stops and taking workers up to the power plants. And having more than enough workers dedicated essentially to this industry is going to ensure that we're always going to have power being produced. And also that's why I've got 2 power plants, is there's a bit of overlap there so that if one power plant starts getting pretty low in production terms, the other one can cover down for it. And that'll ensure that we have a constant supply of power. And we'll also be able to export quite a bit of power as well. Again, not a huge money maker, but it'll work. And as you can see there, I'm utilizing the new waypoints that were added into the game, and that's just to make sure that these buses will follow a specific route I want them to follow. And I'm trying to have them have these dedicated routes so that I can kind of control traffic flow, so that not every vehicle is going in the same direction and getting backed up. I can have them going in alternate directions. And so now we've got the buses running to and fro the power plants. I believe the next thing I'm going to set up is going to be the trains taking people down to the vehicle production factories. And we'll pretty much be doing the same thing. The trains or the tracks, I should say, are a one-way system. So all the trains are going to be running in the same direction, which you have to pretty much do that to keep them moving, at least on a single track loop like that. So I've got those trains running, and again I used waypoints to ensure that they go on specific tracks. And so I've got, I think, 4 trains I started with, one for each station around the residence, and they each go to their own platform down by the vehicle factory. And then I'm going to add in a second train and basically just copy those routes over to those second set of trains. So there's going to be 8 trains in total, and those are the diesel train sets, DRGs. I forget the designation number, but yeah, they're the diesel train set trains. They carry like 165 people or whatever each, and they go about 150 kilometers an hour, which is incredibly fast. So I went for speed over capacity with those. And that's just to keep I'm trying to keep as much regularity or minimize the interval between transportation arriving at those passenger stops as much as possible. Just keep people flowing from them. Otherwise, they sit there and wait forever, and then they just go home after an hour of waiting there. So, it's shaping up pretty good, but the ultimate test will be once I add in some people, seeing just how well all of this actually functions, or if it does actually function at all. Yeah, these mods are really incredible. I'm really impressed by not just the number of mods that have been pushed out so quickly, but the quality of those mods too. Like, all of them, every mod I've downloaded, which I've downloaded almost all of them, excluding a lot of vehicle skins and stuff. I haven't gotten a lot of vehicle skins, but any building, anything like that, I've downloaded it, and there's only been one that didn't work for me, and that was the various construction office sizes, the pack for them. I downloaded that, and whenever I tried to place one of them from that set, it would crash. So I downloaded them individually, and they work that way. So here we go, I'm launching that second set of trains, just copying over the route, get them going on their way. Well, fuck me, just realized I muted myself for the rest of that recording, so trying this again. And just making sure everything's running smoothly still haven't added in any people, just got the vehicles and power flowing at this point. And I just watch, make sure everything's still running smoothly, everyone's still taking their tracks they're supposed to, and something I was really worried about is those fueling stations. They're only connected to the outside line, so I was wondering how that was going to be working for those interior trains, and got me thinking, you know, they can probably hit it, but it's going to really throw off their route, and it's really going to cause them to take a lot of extra time just whenever they have to refuel, which they do have to refuel rather frequently. So, as we take a flyby over here, I don't think I've put it in yet, but I will be putting in a third fueling station, and that one is going to be attached over here in the city. Yeah. It's going to be connected to the loop over here. Let's see. Oh yeah, I've got it in there now. So yeah, you can see that fueling station right there, these trains pull into, and all of the trains are probably going to end up using that fueling station more often than the others, but I had to put that in just to make sure that those trains running on the two interior tracks along that long run, they have a place to refuel without creating an extremely long route for them and just wasting their time incredibly. But we look over here and we do get a bit of a backup over here now, and I do end up throwing in a couple of other signals just ahead where that train moving right now is, and that really does clear up that little traffic jam we end up getting there. Not to mention, you know, as these trains continue to run, they're going to get spaced a little better, and that's going to free them up from being backed up here in the long run. For the most part, I'm going to have to continue to keep an eye on it, but from everything I could tell, they started running pretty smoothly. And so yeah, I do have the night-day cycle enabled, and even for recording, you know, you can't see a whole lot at night, but when you do have a built-up city that's all lit up, it does look pretty cool. So, and the night does pass pretty fast, so I wanted to keep it in there just for some aesthetic purposes, I suppose. And yeah, you can see here that those other signals were very much needed. They did help. They're not in there just yet, but they will be. But yeah, just trains and buses just going all over the place. Just an absolutely insane amount of transportation required for this huge population density. And we aren't even filled up on there, even at the end of this video, which right now I'm just starting to purchase people. I'm going to go ahead and get in about 500 university-educated workers, and then I'm going to get about 1,500 general educated workers, giving us 2,000 workers. That'll be enough to get all of these support buildings operational, lay down a really strong foundation to where we can really expand our population effectively. And since they can all walk to the university, almost everybody is going to be getting a university education, which is great because even with the university education, they can still work at buildings that do not require a university education. As far as productivity, I don't think it provides any benefit, but it's better to have university educated workers than not, because it doesn't take them all that long to get that university education. But primarily what that, and as you can see, as we invite those immigrants that even have general education, there's a lot of them that already have a university education that came in with it, so that's great, because we're going to need those university educated people to be teachers and professors, and we're also going to need engineers and doctors, so it's really good. That's really, really good. And it's going to allow us to, in the future, now that we've got those 2,000 workers, get this foundation up and running, we'll be able to get immigrants from the third world, which are significantly cheaper but come with a huge list of issues. And you can see there, it took us so long to import all those immigrants that our power plant's are already up and running, so we can switch over from importing power to exporting, and that's still only going to put our power plants at half production capacity, which is awesome. I don't even think it's that much on both of them, really, because I think that one export line is just coming off of one power plant. But we'll be able to tie in probably 3 more export lines eventually. And just taking an overview of the city right now. We got all them people running all over the place, every which way. You got the trains, you got the buses. It's just really, really cool seeing the city come to life. And no, I'm not going to continue on using the super apartment for every city, because that is a very, very powerful mod. Very powerful. Probably the most powerful mod there is at this point. It is really cool concept. It does seem to work really well. And yeah, I think at this what that super apartment's most useful for is going to be utilizing it near education centers like universities, to where we can have a lot of people get a university education, and that'll be easier to disperse university educated workers from a single location throughout the map, and so we can really spread the education out like that. And here I was realizing, hey, I've got these people coming to these vehicle factories, but I haven't even set up production. So I went ahead and purchased a bunch of blueprints, got the Volkswagen production going on 3 of them. And on this 4th one, because those Volkswagens are going to be used for exports, which will be making us some money, and this 4th one I'm going to be producing vehicles for domestic use. The first thing I need to get making is this fire truck, which is a mod. And yeah, I'm going to have fire trucks going to my fire station, so we'll have some good fire protection shortly. Right now, if a fire broke out, there's nothing we could do about it except watch it burn. I also realize, in addition to needing to set the blueprints, I need to have an import of resources going so people actually start producing. Now, to get even more workers being moved, which it's not too essential at this point because most of our workers are being consumed, so to speak, by the local economy there and running all those support buildings. Once we do get more workers in there, we're going to need more transportation systems. So I'm setting up some trolley stops down here, and I'm being very brave using that demolish tool. Got very lucky and didn't destroy anything I didn't intend to. But yeah, I'm going to set up some trolley stops down here, expand that trolley road, run that trolley road all the way back to the city, and in addition to trains bringing people down here, we're going to have some trolleys doing it as well. Just really eliminating as much gap between transports at those stops as possible. Now it is, I do only have the 2 stops down here by the factories, and we're going to be bringing people from 4 stops up to the residency. So I'm really going to have to utilize the waypoints in a smart manner to kind of change up the traffic flow so that they don't get stuck up behind each other. And yeah, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to have them They're gonna have to share that one long road. That's perfectly fine. But when they come down here near the stops, which is usually where they get backed up, is at these stops, they're also going to be getting backed up by these rail crossings, which is unfortunate, but there's really nothing I can do about it at this time. I could put in a lot of effort and a lot of money to put in some overpasses and really reroute things, but at this point it's not that necessary. The best thing I can do right now is add in these waypoints so that they go in alternating directions whenever they come around here. Now you can see I've got all these trolleys set up, and I'm setting up their routes, getting them really going. And I have 2 going to each of these stops up here, and then they go to opposite stops down at the factory. I have them going in alternating directions so that we don't have too many going in the same direction, taking the same exact route. I mean, ultimately they are all taking the same route, just I have them split off in different directions so they don't get backed up as much. And the only backups we're going to see with the trolleys really is going to be whenever they come to rail crossings. They'll get slowed down a bit, tend to have to wait on a couple of trains or whatever. But also whenever they're coming into these stops, they're also sharing these stops with those buses going to the power plants. So they might have to wait a little bit, but it's not a huge backup. There's no lineup of like 10 vehicles or anything like that I've seen, which whenever you get a backup like that, that is very, very crippling. That is really bad. Everything starts shutting down at that point. Also, I'm using electric trolleys, right? All the trolleys are electric, so if we lose power, those will get shut down, but we're only using those to take people to the vehicle factories. And on top of that, we have diesel trains running, which will run even if the power is out. They just won't refuel if the power is out. Those are taking workers down to the vehicle factories, so we're going to have, we've got 2 different fuel sources essentially bringing people down to the vehicle factories. And more importantly, we're using diesel buses to take people up to the power plants so that if there is a shutdown, it doesn't shut down the transportation bringing people to the power plant to get the power back online. So, very important to use diesel vehicles to get people to the power plants, in my opinion, because I have set it up before where I've used electric vehicles for everything. One little hiccup happens and your entire transportation network shuts down, and you've got to scramble to try and get people up to the power plants to get the electricity back on, or you just hit import, which can get really annoying if you have constant hiccups, especially as you're troubleshooting your transportation network, trying to work out all the kinks. But yeah, anyway, here we've got a nice little overview of the city. Just taking a look at all the crazy numbers of trains and buses and trolleys just roaming around, people everywhere. Just very, very cool. And the city is still pretty bare bones. I still got to fill it in with some decorations, put in a few trees here and there, probably add in a few more buildings, really flush that city out. But as you can see, we transition to night there. We get a very, very cool look at this whole city all lit up and everything. Just absolutely crazy number of lights going on. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so everything's just been running. It looks like now I have set up a road coming off of the left there, just above that little turn headed towards the power plants, that runs down to a customs house, and that's where we will be exporting vehicles produced. So they are going to have a little bit of a trip taking those vehicles to an export house, but we're producing the open holes, so we can always add more trucks on there and increase the flow if need be. And I'm just kind of taking a look around now, checking everything, make sure there's no backups. Everything looks pretty good. Everything's running pretty smoothly. I'm just checking the university there. We got plenty of open space. Check this 2 schools I've got. Definitely a lot of space. So now you can see our population went up to 2,081. People have been being born, growing up, all that sort of deal. So now I think is a good time, since we have the space in our workers' infrastructure, so to speak, like the schools and the health system and all that. We can bring in a bunch of these third world immigrants, really provide a nice boon. We'll bring in 500 of them, and the reason is these guys have a lot of issues that they come with. They are much cheaper than the other immigrants, but most of them aren't going to have any education, and a lot of them are going to have some serious health issues. So you're going to need plenty of space in your education facilities to care for them. care for them. Educate them. You gotta educate them so that they can actually work, because if they don't have an education, they don't work. That's just how it goes. And so you can see now they're all filing into the schools. Yeah, and we've got the capacity for it. We can handle it. The infrastructure we set up is working really well for that. We're going to be able to have a really cheap supply of population growth there. And just taking a look down here, we're producing open holes now so we can start exporting some of those Volkswagens, making a decent amount of cash. So everything is working really well. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of time to admire some of these mods. Here we've got the Cinema Soju, one of the coolest mods out there. Very cool looking, very cool. It's just a cinema, not a whole lot of difference. And right there we've got the gymnasium, a nice alternative to the soccer fields. It's pretty close in size to the soccer fields, maybe a little bit bigger, but it accommodates a lot more people, so it's much more effective. And it looks pretty cool. Here we've got the a modded city office, and of course, having never placed it before, I ended up connecting it to the back of it. Oh well. Looks pretty cool though. And we come over here, there's the Technical University. Here we've got another cinema. This is another modded cinema. Looks a little more run down, but still very cool. So we've got more than enough cinema for all of our people. And we come over here and we've got the modded pub. The only difference I think between it and the vanilla pub is the appearance. Here we've got a modded small shopping center. Very, very handy. With this we don't need a road cargo connection. Here we've got a cathedral. As we come around to the back of that shopping center, you can see there is 4 vehicle parking spots. Very handy for the 4 delivery vehicles that are essential for that. And we just have them wait there until they're emptied out without having a cargo station. And here we've got one of those modded schools. Very, very cool. Works very similar to the vanilla school. I don't think the numbers are any different. They might be a little different, but very cool nonetheless. This is a super apartment. It's the medical university, just a residence instead of a university. Yeah, got the vanilla gas station over there. I do have a modded gas station downloaded, but I haven't placed it. Here we've got this enormous kindergarten, which is very handy. With this, I can use it instead of having like 10 kindergartens to do the same thing. And we come over here, the modded hospital. It's exactly the same as a regular hospital. The vanilla hospital, I should say, just with an additional parking spot and a second road connection to hopefully alleviate that troublesome ambulance backup that you always get. And that's pretty much it. So we're just going to take a little fly through, follow this route down that our wonderful workers take to the vehicle factories every single day. You know, it's not the most scenic route. It's a very developed path. All those train tracks and that very overbuilt road. Very cool though. Very cool. And so that's pretty much all I've got for you. So I just want to say thank you for watching. As always, have a good one. We're going to go ahead and continue on with this series more because I do love playing this game. It is a lot of fun. One of the better city builders out there, in my opinion, especially now that it has mods. There's so much that can be done. And we're just taking a look there at our vehicles that have been produced, waiting to be exported there. Oh yeah. And in one of the upcoming episodes, we're going to be taking a real, we'll take a look at just how much money these vehicle factories make us. That'll be coming up probably pretty soon. I would like to wait until I have full production, which is going to take a little bit to get enough workers for that. But once we get up to full production, we'll take an in-depth look at just how much these vehicle factories make. Anyways, have a good one. Thank you for watching.